because it's not enough, you know. We are just defeated by the vastness of this.
Somebody from the center section. A lady, yes, please. As she waits for a mic. While she waits, I must say, Amitav, that while China is 300 miles away, mainland China is...
Yes.
This question is a slight digression, but still there's a connection. Like you said, a lot has come up from the opium trade this side. There was a thriving, there it still is, and a thriving opium trade in Madhya Pradesh. And in fact, there's a place called Mau, M-H-O-W, Mau, which has Kent, which has been built up, which was established on the basis of the British wanting to take up that opium trade, the profits from that trade in that region, because that region was becoming more profitable than the Bengal trade. So do you have any, any thoughts on maybe moving the story to that region, because there's a lot of connection?
Yes, you're quite right. There are a lot of connections, and I've often found it interesting when I have these interactions. People will come and say, "Oh, you know, my grandmother used to make us opium ke parathe, afim ke parathe." So it's not like, look, you know, opium is not evil in itself. Human life is unimaginable without opium. We all take opium, you know, in the sense that half the cough medicines are based on opium. Half our medicines for dysentery are based on opium. How many of you have taken Imodium for dysentery? Imodium is essentially an opiate, you know. If you go to have an operation, you'll almost certainly be given an opiate. So, you know, human life is unimaginable without opium. It's like fire, you know. It's so important in in human civilization that you can't just say that it's evil, we won't have it. It's an essential part of our lives. It's rather what we do with it, you know. It's what the British did with it in the 18th and 19th centuries, which is actually almost diabolical, you might say, you know, which is that they decided basically to market opium in a large scale to China and create this kind of mass addiction, if you like, and that's what came about. But you're right. There were two kinds of opium in India. There was Malwa opium and there was Bengal opium. Bengal opium was completely a monopoly of the East India Company. They tried to bring Malwa opium under their monopoly as well, but the Malwa merchants were too clever for them. They outsmarted them, and they built. That was why Western India is so prosperous. But you know, the people who really got rich out of the opium trade were the Maharajas of Western India. So if you look at all those grand palaces that you see across Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and so on, why were they built in the 19th century? You know, it was because all built on opium profits. Yes.
Okay, now I'm looking for a particular breed. I'm looking for the intense, mad Amitav Ghosh fan from college standing at the back with burning eyes and a long question that nobody answers. Nobody understands.
Mad is fine, but not from college. Will that do?
No, I refuse to go with the tyranny of the mic. I will choose. Where are those intense college students? The guy in the white shirt. Yes, Amitav has spotted you. Your eyes are obviously aflame. And I presume it's not to do with opium.
Opium would make your eyes dull.
Good evening, sir. Sir, last year Vikram Seth was here and he's written this book called Three Chinese Poets.
Yes.
And that's pretty much all I've read of Chinese poetry. So could you tell us about the Chinese literature you've read and whether and how that's influenced your writing and your research in any way?
Sure. You know,
I told you.
Thank you. And I am a college student.
Chinese literature is an endless mine, you know. It's a wonderfully rich literature, amazing poetry, amazing painting, of course, you are probably more familiar with. But I think what is really distinctive about Chinese writing is that they have this wonderful tradition of the novel, you know. They've produced many, many, many novels going back from centuries, long before the tradition of the European novel. And some of these novels are fascinating to this day. There's, you know, some of their most famous novels actually derive from Indian stories. Like one of their most famous novels is called Journey to the West. which has been translated as the Monkey King. But that takes a sort of Hanuman-like figure and follows them away. The West in this is India, you know. And actually, that is another thing that's so interesting in Chinese literature. Their deep fascination with India, you know, because of Buddhism, because of monks traveling across the borders, because they also credited Indians with all sorts of alchemical powers and so on. So there was a long and deep tradition of interest in India. There was a great deal of writing about India. So yeah, I mean, it's a very strange thing that so little has actually of that been translated into Indian languages. Those of you who are interested, just now a book has been published in Bengali on how to learn Chinese through Bangla. So that might be of interest.
Right. Which section is? What about this section? It's been so
Yes,
polite.
they have the hands up.
Somebody in this section has their hands up.
Oh, he can see.
Okay, fine. Yes. Yes, the lady in the blue with glasses. And if anybody's right at the back and you're sticking your hands up, we can't see
Yes,
you because the
that's
light's not on you. I'd
not
love
right
to
there.
have somebody standing right at the back wanting to say something.
Yes, there are many.
Yes, this is your question.
I'm just good. Sorry, but I'm going to go way back.
To when you were a child or
No.
when he was a child? Go ahead.
Do you think Tridib a sentimentalist? And I'm sorry for, I mean, I don't know. Okay. And another thing that I would like to know is that what made Tridib happen? I mean, because I don't know. I've read the book and then I fell in love with Tridib. So, and I'm sure as a lot of us did.
Thank you. This is about a character in my book, The Shadow Lines. Tridib, he was a central character in it. And it's amazing how, I mean, that book was published over 25 years ago, and how he's so alive in people's minds. A couple of years ago, I got a letter from a girl in Kerala, a schoolgirl. She said, "Sir, I read your book, and I loved the book, and can you please send me a picture of Tridib?" So I had no picture to send. Tridib, well, I don't know. I think Tridib came about through, as all my characters come about, odds and ends, people I've known, cousins I've known, relatives. It's a mysterious thing. I can't even account for it.
We're going to go, sorry.
The first bit was?
Does he think Tridib is a sentimentalist? Is Tridib a sentimentalist?
I've seen, there have been essays and books and so on written about Tridib, and at this point, I think anyone could say anything about him. And I would not dispute it. Perhaps he is. I don't know. He was what he was, really.
Okay, we're going to the outer edges of the West.
I thought you had.
Oh, did we?
them
Who?
back there? You said that you wanted someone.
But yeah, but I wanted someone from. Oh, there's somebody from standing at the back. Who do you see?
Yes, there was a guy who has his hand up. Yes.
With the specs and the black shirt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You know how you mentioned that when a writer creates characters, he comes closer to them, he gets connected, and you do not want to part with them like in just 3 to 4 years. So now what? Like 10 years? Aren't you like closer to those characters? Is it not tougher for you to just let them go?
Good question. Yes, it's very tough, but I don't feel that I have let them go, I'm going to do other things, and maybe 5-6 years down the road, if I'm still, if my hand is not paralyzed, maybe I'll come back to those characters. I can see that happening. It is really very, very difficult to let go, and I've just finished a book. So, over the next couple of years, maybe something will germinate, and maybe I will want to come back to those characters. I've by no means let them go. I mean, at the end of this book, you'll see that I've said that I'm just getting started.
Malavika, how much time do we have left? Another 4 questions and answers also. Yes. So, who did you say, Malavika, has the mic? You were telling me in very stern tones. Done? Happy?
Thank you.
Please. Malavika insists you must ask the next question.
Thanks a lot, Malavika. Okay. Okay, as a great admirer of your books, I always,
you.
I feel intrigued by the amount of research that goes into each and every book. And sometimes I really wonder whether you are a historian in the first place, an explorer, a linguist, or for that matter, even a botanist. Because if you go through the last one, I mean, there's so much on botany as well. How do you master this? I mean, how do you master all of this, and how much? I mean, how do you do all that research, especially the language of the Girmatiyas? I mean, did that language really exist, or is it something that has been created out of your imagination?
Listen, you mustn't ask a Bengali why they do research. This is our Jat Babsha, you know. We do research because we feel compelled to do it, and I love it. I love it. I'm never happier than when I'm in a library, thumbing through old documents. It's something I genuinely enjoy, And see, I have one of those minds. I like little factoids, It's the same kind of reason why people become, they do quizzes and so on, because some people like factoids, and I like these, having a take on disparate things. But more than that, beyond that, I would say that I'm also trying to make a statement on the novel as a form. Because if you look at the 19th century novel, if you look at the novel as Melville wrote it, if you look at the novel as George Eliot wrote it, there was never a sense that certain things are excluded from a novel. There's never a sense that, Melville is writing about ichthyology, he's writing about, mammals, he's writing about history. Melville's wonderful short novella, Benito Sereno, is actually built upon another text which he cites extensively. So I think something has gone wrong with the novel. If we say to ourselves that novelists must impose some sort of limit upon themselves in terms of what they can be interested in. To me, what is great about the novel is that it can embrace so many aspects of life. To me, it's the unified field. It's the field which can bring in things as disparate as cooking and botany. And I don't see why one should impose these limits. And most of all, I think it's actually wrong increasingly, I think it's actually wrong to impose these limits, because what are you actually saying? Are you really saying that novelists must be stupid? That they must be uneducated? That they must not have any curiosity?
No, they're not actors. They're not. That's our thing.
I certainly don't believe that. George Eliot did not celebrate stupidity. She was a extremely brilliant woman who was writing, from the peak of an enormous body of knowledge, and I think that's how it should be.
There was a hand there. There was a lady, yes, with the spectacles and the longish silver earrings, I think. Look at me.
Yes.
Huh? Next
You are
I'll
a
be
good
saying
observer.
with that plaid something and with a hint of mauve. What's on?
Sir, my earrings are golden.
Golden.
My earrings
You've
are golden.
insulted her, Rahul.
Your earrings are golden.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's never again.
So,
Never.
my question comes because we have spoken at length about your creative process, how you create characters. So I would like to reference to a lot of 20th century critics who were of the opinion that poetry should exist as alienated from the poet. But today we have all these literature meets where authors come and talk about their creative processes even before a book is released. So my question is, do you think that without this sort of a voyeuristic view into the author as a man and his creative processes, literature today would be marketable?
I applaud your question, really. I think that's a
And
very
your
good
earrings.
question. Yes, I think there's become a great deal of navel gazing, in today's world, and it's sort of encouraged by the whole paraphernalia that's grown up around literary production. I mean, you meet people who've written, one short story, and they're talking about creative processes and so on. And I do find it. I mean, I sometimes do find it kind of hilarious. I am not, it's creative processes are something which are very difficult to talk about, I think. And, there are many things you can talk about in it. But at the end of the day, the reality is that there is a kind of mystery in it, which you absolutely cannot put words to. I mean, I don't know why it suddenly happens, and it's hard to say that, I don't want to fetishize some kind of an idea of inspiration or whatever, but there are days when suddenly, you'll have just your ordinary plodding days that go on week after week after week, but suddenly one day, in an absolutely sort of unrelated situation or location, suddenly things open up, and you just have this sort of blinding sort of insight, I've had days when suddenly I sit back and I say to myself, okay, I know what I'm doing for the next year, because you see something and then it's going to take that length of time to try and realize it, I always think, I think of Rilke, really. Rilke for 14 years, he didn't write a single poem. But because you're not writing doesn't mean that something isn't happening. Because it's preparation. It's always preparation. You prepare, you prepare, you prepare, you prepare. And then a moment comes, as it came for Rilke, and he wrote the Duino Elegies, in less than a month. So, these things happen, and at some level, they are mysterious. And there is nothing you can say about it except to sound foolish by saying that they're mysterious,
इस शाम का
hello, sir.
अंतिम सवाल.
Sir, sir, I have a question.
I refuse
Sir.
to bow to the tyranny of the mic.
Sir.
I told you that before. Amitav, you choose. I refuse to take the blame for this.
Okay, I'll choose him since he has the mic.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my question is, on your book, The Shadow Lines, you explored the new views on nationalism, and you explored that, you said that as a man can look upon his own country and a new country, just like you look through a mirror, you use this imagery. So as we look like a mirror, we can feel that if we have imagination. But how much is this easy to realize in this such way for common people like us?
Look, I mean, in the first place, I must say it's very difficult for me to answer questions about the shadow lines because I wrote it 26 years ago and I don't even remember what I was thinking, but at the same time, I think what I was trying to say there is that if you use your imagination in a disciplined way, you can perceive other realities. And that is certainly something I believe. And I think it happens every day when you're speaking to your to a friend who may be from a completely different world from your own. At a certain point, you do transcend your own experience and you learn, through an act of empathy, which is something uniquely human, that we can learn to look at the world through the eyes of others. And I think that's a very important thing that, that comes to us instinctively. But I do also think that that is the point of a humanistic education, that it teaches you to see the world through the eyes of other people who are not yourself.
Thank you, sir.